Okay, it's 5:30 and we're going to call this meeting to order. We will begin with roll call.
I'm totally off kilter because I can't say Mayor Bruin on this one. Mr. Blades.
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Present.
Mr. Heyman.
Present.
Ms. Breeden.
Here.
4 present. Mayor Bruin is absent at this time.
Next, we're going to move to the approval of the agenda. Does any member of the council wish to see any changes?
None. I move we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
We're going to do roll call all night long, just so you know, because Mayor will be on the line for the next open session. Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Ms. Breeden.
Aye.
4 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next we're going to move to public comment on closed session. Seeing no public on the floor, do we have any public on the phone lines? Okay, seeing none. Okay, we will now move into closed session. Now 6 o'clock, we're going to bring this meeting to open session. So we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everybody will join me and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Solomon, would you like to lead us in invocation?
Please join me in prayer if you would. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Lord, thank you for the opportunity and the privilege you have given to us to serve this community, Lord. Lord, give us your wisdom, your discernment as we talk about various issues. Lord, let the decisions we make be useful and be beneficial to this community, Lord. I pray for our country. Lord, there is so much unrest, so many shootings going on. Lord, I ask you to take control of the situation. Lord, I pray for our police department here and the police department elsewhere as they put their lives on line to protect the communities they serve. Lord, I ask for your protection for them, Lord. Lord, I pray for our troops in harm's way. Lord, protect them from all evil. Lord, bless each one of us here. And I ask this in the precious name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, next we will have the attorney report out of closed session. This will be presented by Martin.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and council members. Council considered one item in closed session, and that was existing litigation, Finley versus City of Ridgecrest. No reportable actions were taken by the City Council in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have public comments of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. We'll begin with public comment from the floor. Do we have any public comment from the floor? Sir. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Council. Sean Connolly, wastewater operator. Just wanted to commend you guys. You know, if this budget is passed tonight, you guys have followed through on the words that you have spoken, you know, since I've been coming and representing the UFCW. You guys have said we need to take small steps to get where we want to be. And this is great. This is putting action to the words that you guys have been putting out there. Had a lot of great support from all of you and City Manager Ron Strand, Public Works Director Travis. A lot of instrumental people in making this happen, I think, and just want to commend you guys, and we really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Any other public comments from the floor? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the phone lines.
Hello.
Caller, go ahead, state your name and go ahead.
My name is Mike Sanat, and I just wanted to ask if you're going to be putting an agenda item on for a general plan update. There's a couple things that have changed since the last one, including the passage of Sigma and the impact that has on our valley, and the pending status of the Mojave Desert tortoise, which is going to be declared as an endangered species. I think there's also a possibility, maybe fairly immediate, that the water district, the Indian Wells Valley Water District, will have to declare a moratorium on will serves. And that would mean that you wouldn't be able to add any more hookups at some point in time. I don't know how they would do that, but this is a very real possibility considering the drought conditions we have. I'll talk about the Groundwater Authority at the appropriate agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next caller. Okay, seeing no further public comment, we will now move on to the council announcements, and we can start from the left there, Councilman Blades.
Yep, I have a few things. I had the pleasure to be at the first ribbon cutting out on base up at Clip. Their first ribbon cutting since a lot of the rebuild from the earthquake started. It was neat. I got to walk around these newly built magazines, talk to the lead engineer there, and get educated on exactly what it looks like if one of them blow in, blow up, and how the roof caves down. Anyways, I don't need to dig all the way into it, but it was interesting stuff. So it was an honor to be there. I was glad that I was asked. I appreciate that. And there's going to be more of those to follow. It's going to be a string now of these buildings coming up to speed after they've been built. So it was, they as in base, NOCWD and NavAir leadership have been very good about communicating with the community, not just through us, but they'll come out to events, make sure they came here to council meetings and put the message out there. Here's the build schedule. Here's how things are going. This is what's on contract, and this is how we see things going. And I just want to express my gratitude for that. Solomon gave a really good speech at one of the groundbreakings, just discussing the relationship we have between them, and just wanted to make sure I commented on that ongoing growth. The next thing announce, or at least make note of, is that the chamber just had their awards luncheon, and it was a pleasure to be there. Again, I was honored that I was asked to be up there giving out awards for the city. I really appreciate doing that. I think we have somebody in the audience who ended up with an award, the Entrepreneur of the Year for Raw Media. And I didn't get a chance because it really wasn't my place, right? I don't belong to the chamber. I wasn't there on that role, but I wanted to say, Nick, that you couldn't have deserved it more, that award. You did start at a bad time during COVID, but you kept it moving. And one thing that you did that everybody doesn't always know about is you hit the ground asking, what can you do for the community? That's how I got to know you. How can you help? What can I do? And I really appreciated that about you, and you've shown a lot of tenacious drive. The last thing I wanted to mention is that Ridgecrest is one of the main donors for the fireworks show. So we should be able to, you'll see a big Ridgecrest, City of Ridgecrest for the fireworks. And I believe, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, Solomon, is it correct that the Lions are going to be, they're going to be sponsoring the finale? Is that how it works?
That's what I heard.
Okay, cool. I believe that's all I got.
Thank you. Solomon?
On the lines of chamber awards, Kyle didn't mention, but I have to mention. Council member Kyle Blades got an award for beautification. So for the initiative he has taken for cleanup and all that, so really appreciate that. You have set a model as well as taken the lead on that, so hopefully that will continue by somebody. So
Thank you, Solomon.
you're welcome. And then on the fireworks, I think the city should be given credit because we have sponsored that by giving 10,000. So just wanted to know, the public to know about that.
Very good. Peggy?
I only have one. At a meeting not very long ago, I had asked if we could look at getting signs for those people that walk their dogs when it's very, very hot out, or when the asphalt is starting to melt. And there was some discussion of what it would take for a dog's paw to blister. And I called the vets, and the vet said, if you can't put your hand down on there, your dog's paw shouldn't be down there also on this hot asphalt or concrete or whatever you're walking them on. If it's uncomfortable for you, it's uncomfortable for them. It just takes them longer. So I had asked Travis if he could see what it would take to have a sign like that up around our parks. And he came back with a cost of, I believe it was approximately $4,000. I don't want to take that out of city funds. I'm wondering if there are people that would be willing to help donate towards putting those signs up around the city in areas where they're walking dogs. And if you are, give me a call, or give the city, give us a call here at the city. It's not like we're rolling in the dough, and $4,000 isn't a lot, but $4,000 is $4,000. So I'm asking if anybody is interested in help to contribute towards those signs. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further council announcements, so we will now move on to the consent calendar. All items listed on consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the item before action is taken. I will now read each of the items. Item 1, proposed action to approve draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council special meeting and budget workshop dated May 25th, 2022, and regular meeting dated June 1st, 2022. Item 2, proposed action to adopt a resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council and the Successive Redevelopment Agency adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year of 2022 and 23, establishing appropriations, estimating revenues, and establishing the policies by which the budget may be and shall be amended.
Does anybody wish to have anything pulled?
Any member of the council wish to have an item pulled? Any member of the public wish to have an item pulled? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Ms. Breeden?
Aye.
Mayor Bruin?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Looks like we do have a,
Okay.
caller, go ahead.
Hello, this is Tom Wagner calling. I had a question about the budget consent item.
Go ahead.
I just had a question about one part in the budget. I don't mind that you voted on already because I guess I didn't get in there quick enough. But my question is, what's the line item of $60,000 for annexation study? What is that?
Yeah, Mr. Wicknick, that is a line item in case the city moves forward with annexation of a piece of land at China Lake and 395.
In case they go ahead with it, so they haven't. There's no plan to go ahead with it at this point.
The city would like to move forward on that, and that's why it's in the budget. If we do not move forward on it, then we will not use that funding for that purpose.
Okay, annexations usually have to be contiguous to the borders of the city. So does that mean we would have to annexation from our border out to there?
Yes, if we can obtain the land, there would be a contiguous annexation out to that location.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was wondering.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, moving on to the discussion action items. Agenda item number 3, a resolution to accept the base bid as submitted by Crosstown Electrical and Data Incorporated and accept the additive alternative one for the additional pool boxes. Allocate CMAQ funds, PTMI-SEA funds, potential Cal EVIP funds, and TDA funds for the base bid and additive alternate one, and a 10% contingency of $79,066.50 for a maximum total of $869,731.50. Award a construction contract to Crosstown Electrical and Data Incorporated to construct the corporate yard electrical vehicle charging station and photovoltaic improvements in the amount of $790,665, and authorize the city manager, Ron Strand, to execute the contract. This will be presented by Travis Reed.
First of all, I'd just like to apologize to you for how long and wordy that was. When I wrote it, I was not thinking about the length. But anyway, so we'd like to award a contract. It came in over budget. Part of the reason why it came in over budget and what we budgeted for is this project was started in 2018. Cost estimates for this project were prepared in 2020. And since then, we all know we had a pandemic. We've had some issues with supplies. There's some back order on materials. So we've looked into it. We've looked at the cost difference based on what we budgeted to what the CPI has done, and it's pretty close to in line with where the CPI is. So we feel delaying this project any further would be a disservice to the public. We've got electric vehicle that we are purchasing this year in this next budget cycle for transit, and without these facilities, we would not be able to operate them. Those vehicles will be purchased under the AHSC grant, the Affordable Housing Sustainable Community Grant that goes along with the new construction of the apartments over off Norma. So we're also asking for a 10% contingency because since this project was started in 18 and the cost estimates were done in 20. It was also spec'd in 2020. So there are some items in that contract for the specs that are no longer made, and we don't know exactly what the difference in cost for these inverters are going to be. The inverters that were spec'd were, I'm going to screw this up because I'm not an electrical person, but I want to say the 30 kW,
Yeah,
and
30 kW.
the new ones they make are 33.3 kW. So we felt that with that, we just want to make sure that we've got enough money to cover our costs. The order in which Mr. Heyman read the funding for this is obviously we have a CMAQ grant, which is about $556,000 of it. We've got some leftover PT MISIA funds, which were used to purchase an electric bus last fiscal year that we want to utilize because we've got a drop dead date on that to utilize. And then the remainder will come from there was one more. I lied to you. I don't remember what the other one was. Is it?
Was it TDA?
TDA is what makes up the final amount, but thank you. The Cal EVIP funds were brought to our attention that this is another grant program. The funding from this is not included in the funding request for the project because we haven't been awarded this yet. Based on the chargers that we selected, there's still money available in the San Joaquin Valley for it, so staff applied for that grant. It's for $28,000, and then obviously, if we get it, it would just alleviate some of the funds that came from the TDA funds, which is the basic fund that transit operates out of. So with that, I'm open for any questions that council or the public would have.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council for any discussion.
I do have a couple of questions, Travis Reed. What is our experience with the Crosstown Electric and Data Inc.?
So Crosstown Electric is a reputable contractor. Wildan, who did the design for this, has worked with them on numerous projects in other areas. We received 2 bids on the project. We had 9 people show up for the pre-bid, so it was looking pretty good, but we ended up only getting 2 bids for it. A lot of people had some trouble with procuring the chargers. The chargers are on a 6-month back order, so there were some issues with that. But from everything that I've seen based on the references they gave and looking through their bid package, they're not in any litigation right now. They've been current with all their contracts. So it's my opinion that they'd be a reputable contract and they'd be able to perform the job that we have requested.
So they haven't done any work for us previously.
Not to my knowledge, sir.
So what kind of verification have we done
So
about their?
The verification that we typically do is we call all their references and we speak to representatives, ask how they performed on their contracts. Did they hit deadlines? Did they meet their milestones? Was it under budget? Are they change order happy? Are they, and when I say change order happy, that's a horrible way to describe that, so I apologize. Do they look for change orders at every step? Are they willing to go outside of the scope to satisfy some of the needs of the city if you've got extracurricular needs such as we would on this project with transit still needing to utilize the structure in which the solar is going on. And we received positive comments. Wildan called some other people that they've worked with, also inquired about that, and we got positive reports back from just about every reference that they listed.
That's good to know. Thank you.
I just have a question about the contingency. The 10% is, so you were saying that's for inflationary costs or changes in, because of the current pricing of?
So the inflationary costs are actually built into the bid. You could tell just based by when we did our original cost estimate and the cost difference, which was in the budget versus what the cost estimate of the project came back at. But the contingency is because when we spec'd this originally in 2020, we already know of an inverter issue. We also know that some of the panel that was spec'd is nearing the end of its life. So we're expecting there might be some added costs for the newer technology for panels, for inverters, and for things like that. Other than that, it's a pretty straightforward project. There's not much digging, so there's not many unknowns underground that we should get into. It's purely more a materials issue, and I wanted to make sure that we wouldn't, we're already going to have a 6-month delay on the charger, so I wanted to make sure that we wouldn't incur any more delays and that we had some funding available provided that the panels were outside what the cost of the original panel that was scoped is and what the original cost of the inverters were.
And so you feel pretty comfortable that the 10% will cover those additional
I think 10% is a very adequate number. I mean, typically on a project like this, I probably would have asked for 5 just for minor unknowns, so I did go to 10. It's not a road rehab project where everything's unknown underground, so you can see stuff at the surface on this one. So I feel pretty confident in the 10%.
Okay.
That was my question.
Oh, sorry.
So, thank you.
I wouldn't
That
let
was
you
good.
have it.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Any other comments from the council?
Yeah, just a quick question. It's a general one. You lay it out here, and we can see it in the data packet, but could you just real quick, just for the public, say how much is coming out of general fund? Because you line out how we're paying out of this grant and that fund and that fund.
Yeah, so where did I do that?
I'm not trying to put you on the spot there,
No,
Travis.
I just got to remember where I did it. I can't remember where I did it in my staff report. Oh, no, I did it on the resolution. That's where I did it.
Yep.
So on this project, $457 is reimbursable through the CMAQ grant. Our local match is $72,743. The PT MISIA funds available for this project are $127,629.32, of which once the CMAQ is billed, we will use the PT MISIA funds. Thereafter, we have $31,391.41 of LC Top funds, and the remaining funds will come out of, oh, I'm sorry, I lied to you. There's a state of good repair funds that are left over from another project too, and that's fleeting me. I can't remember what project that was that we would like to utilize. And 2 of these, PT MISIA and state of good repair, have a drop dead date. So $123,721 will come from that fund, and then the remaining $61,925 plus or minus, which covers the 10% contingency and everything, will come from the standard transit fund, which is our TDA LTF funds. And then obviously, if we get this $28,000 Cal EVIP grant, that will lower that $61,000 down by that amount.
Thank you. I'm very much in favor of this, and I guess later after public comment, I have a few philosophical questions for you about EVs and the direction of the city. Thanks, Travis.
Not a problem.
Okay, any other comments from council? Okay, hearing none, we'll bring it back to the public for public comment. Any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move to the phone lines. Do we have any public comment on the phone? And we have no public comment on the phone. So we'll bring it back to council for any other, did you have any other?
Yeah, just
statements or
so I'll try to make this quick, but I thought it was important because it just got brought up to me not that long ago, that sometimes not sometimes, but many rural cities and towns are showing that their infrastructure, they can't handle an increasing growth of EV and photovoltaic cells. And I'm sure this is stuff that you are paying attention to on a grand scale. And so I just wanted to, for the...
So, yes.
You probably know where I'm going with this.
Yes, so we actually already applied to Edison.
Mm-hmm.
We were proactive on this to make sure that the grid could handle it. We have already paid the $31,000 fee to Edison to have it designed for all the infrastructure upgrades that we have to do so it can support this. So yes, we are very much in tune. That was another reason that I should have brought up to council originally as to why I feel this project is something that we should move forward on, is because we do already have a substantial amount of funding that we have paid to have this project prepared and ready to rock and roll. So.
Brilliant, thanks.
So I have one other question. So it's sized to handle our current needs of EV vehicles. And is it easily expandable for future growth of EV vehicles?
Define easily for me. You could expand on it with some upgrades, but currently it's a rooftop design, and the shade structure that was designed originally to support the load of solar panels will be built out. So as far as expanding it, it's easy. Finding a place to put it, if we want it to be rooftop, want it to be the same style construction, that would have some other fees some other things that we would need to do to make it.
I guess to make it more specific would be.
Correct.
Are we going to have to incur costs again when we, if we do need to expand, that could have been,
Well, anytime
built
you do
into this project so that it, would.
You're, no matter what you do with electrical is sized to meet the need for the power at the time. So if we go back and we add solar to it, you will definitely have some other charges for inverters and for the MCCs and the cabinets and the things that control what we're doing. But as far as is it easily expandable, I would say it is in that sense, but it's just a matter of procuring the right materials to be able to handle the load that we're either pushing onto the system or receiving back in from SCE.
Very good.
No further questions from me.
Okay.
If there's nothing
Then
else.
we'll look for a motion.
Yeah, I motion to approve.
If I can just jump in there real quick,
Go right ahead.
I just wanted to once again commend Travis and the team. EV is a
I did. Go ahead. I think we lost him on the 5.
It's gonna, if we lost him, it's gonna be a quiet meeting.
Mayor Burden, we cannot hear you.
you could not hear me.
We can now.
I simply said kudos to the team, Travis, and for everyone getting this involved. EV is a big part of long-term infrastructure, especially in California. There's lots of different opinions on the importance or non-importance of it, but at the end of the day, it is something that is going to show up like an emerging technology over the next, decades. And all of the grant money that they've been able to put together just is a perfect example of a small dollar infrastructure investment on our behalf for a large dollar return in the long run. So kudos to the team and thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Burden. Okay,
So I got a motion on the floor, if anybody wants a second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
I'm still being thrown off because I can't see Bruin. Mr. Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
aye.
Ms. Breeden.
Aye.
Mayor Bruin.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 4, a resolution to approve the professional services agreement with Wildan Engineering for an amount not to exceed $146,880.40 for preliminary construction engineering services for the city Franklin Avenue Substandard Street construction project, and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement. Again, this will be presented by Travis Reed.
Less 40 this time for you.
Thank you.
So we're here this is the Substandard Street project that I talked to you. It's been vetted through infrastructure. We've got some other things that are going to spin from this, hopefully. It's a sole source on this one. The current engineering firm that we're utilizing for staff help for design, bidding, things of that nature, went through a dedicated RFP process for the projects in which they were awarded. And we feel that it's in the best interest of the city and the public to utilize the same engineering firm for this project, because we are trying to reutilize materials from one project to be able to construct a road on another project, as I've talked to you guys about before, about what we call RAP, which is recycled asphalt products. And having these bid together simultaneously is, I think, essential to being able to do it. We got some good data back on our cores, so my staff report was a little premature. I know I said we would like to use the grindings from Ward Avenue, but we had streets that were 5 and 6 inches thick on Wild Rose and Coral and things like that. So a mill and fill style rehab on that street will be doable, and we're hoping to reutilize that product because it's a shorter haul and closer to Franklin for the project. And that project is also held by Wildan, in which they went through an RFP process for. So again, this is sole sourced. We did not put this one out, but we feel that it's in the best interest of the city to coordinate and not have potentials for delays because one project didn't get out at the same time as another project, and being able maybe even to bid them together so that way we know we get the same contractor, so it makes life easier and contractors aren't trying to coordinate and things of that nature. Consulting fee for the project is $146,880. Staff went ahead and did survey work in-house for the project, so that way we could save the $35,000 or $40,000 in consulting fees, so we would have base mapping for it. I got to give kudos to Quinn and Gail. They worked their butt off on the FY22 project and this project, getting cores and surveying and getting data so we could present an adequate design for the project. And with that, it's coming from Measure V, or not Measure V, I'm sorry, it's coming from the substandard street fee. I'm so used to saying Measure V on all this. It will also include ADA improvements. And it's going to aid the city in the future because right now Franklin Avenue is one of our biggest contributors to the debris that comes from the county when we hit rain events, washes down Mahan. And because we don't have an improved street on Franklin, the water that gets across the street hangs a right turn, washes out the south side of Franklin, and ends up putting a bunch of dirt and debris out on Down Street and within our storm drain system, to which then our streets has to spend days cleaning up, cleaning storm drains, doing things like that. So we're trying to utilize this project to kill two birds with one stone. Obviously, pave a collector street in the Ridgecrest Heights area, which is a substandard street and does qualify for this fund, and also prevent future cleanup on Downs and on Franklin Street for our streets department, so that way they can spend more time repairing roads rather than cleaning up messes. And with that, I am open for questions now.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council for any questions or discussion.
I have a question. I like the idea of using the recycled asphalt. I'm wondering if you said this is a new technology, and I know this isn't part of what we're voting on tonight, except we're voting on whether the service agreement rather than the process. But I'm wondering if it can be applied elsewhere for other roads that we may have. Is it an ongoing project, or are you using this to see how it works for us?
So we actually went out and looked at data. So Caltrans did a project about 7 years ago now, where they utilized a recycled asphalt product on 178 when they did their paving from about Ridgecrest out towards Trona. So we went and sampled and looked at that surface. Their process was their base course was a recycled asphalt product, and then they put a cap over the top of it, and it's held up great. So we are currently looking at utilizing this on any of the streets that we can right now. It takes, depending on what you do and how you do it, so if you do cold central plant or you do cold in place, it takes, the street has to meet certain criteria for you to be able to do it. One of the things why I liked this recycled asphalt product for Franklin is this is a complete reconstruct, because right now it's a substandard street. It's basically a desert mix street. So even if, let's say, this doesn't work out for our base paving course, or maybe it will. Maybe we can use Ward's grindings for the base paving course, and maybe we can use those other streets for our base. But no matter what, we can reutilize the existing materials for at least one layer of construction of this, whether that's the subsurface aggregate base layer or whether that's the first pavement course of it. So either way, it's reutilizing what we've already paid for and just paying for some additives into it and saving us the cost of rock and sand and all the stuff, all the things that go into asphalt other than the emulsion and things like that.
Thank you for doing that. I think that's long overdue, and I know that you must have been looking at it or you wouldn't have been able to do that from what happened so long ago. But thank you. I appreciate that. Good job.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Reed, you said this is the first ever substandard street project. So what process did we use earlier, and what is the difference between these two? And how do you think this process is better than what we have been using previously?
Are you speaking about the methods of construction?
Yeah.
So the previous methods of construction that we've always used has basically just removed, I'll give you an example of a mill and fill project. So our FY21 project, we spec'd out what's called a mill and fill. So we mill the whole street and then we put new asphalt down over the top of it. Well, those grindings just get either hauled off, given to somebody, or if we think we could have a use, Les could use it for shoulder backing, we have them haul it to our yard. Well, we have a surplus of grindings from certain streets, but depending on the quality of the grindings, depends on if you can use them for this technology. So you have to have a consistent asphalt layer. You can't have variable depths to where you're getting dirt and you're getting things like that, because that changes the oil content and the binder that you have to put in the product. So we finally found some roads that we know have a decent asphalt section because we cored them, and that we can actually reutilize this material because we're going to get consistent material when we mill that street to put a new asphalt cap on the top of it. So it's looking really, really good. We wanted to try to utilize this on Peg Street as well, but the Peg Street infrastructure, it's long, straight, which is one of the criterias because it's kind of like a train of vehicles that moves along to do this process. But Peg Street just doesn't have a thick enough asphalt layer to be able to do it. So, but we've tried on all of our recent projects to try to be able to reutilize any grindings that we can. This last project, we obviously did not try that. This is going to be the first time we've tried to implement some of this. So we're always constantly looking and trying to find ways to make our dollars go further. And this is, I definitely think, a good way for us to do that.
So the money is coming from substandard fund. So we already had a provision for that?
So
when we had the budget?
So Substandard Street Fund is a fund that was established in the 70s or 80s? Early 80s. That's right, with the assessment district. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So for roads in which have been put in but have not been put into city standards, and there was a $1,800 fee that would go on the permit when you pulled a permit to do the work for future road projects, things like that. Unfortunately, over the years, we didn't really, the fund didn't follow the CPI and follow the changes in what the dollar's done. So the fund doesn't have enough money to go in and do all the substandard streets, but we do have a list of what we consider to be substandard streets and to be eligible to be used for this funding. So in trying to make this project go, we are trying to find, like I said, creative ways. There's about 800,000 in the fund. We're trying to find creative ways to get one of our collector streets done, which will be a benefit rather if we did one street like a Ranger Street. It really only benefits the people that live on that street. With Franklin being a collector where Porter, Mayo, Ranger, Farragut, McCall, all these streets dump into it, we feel like we're actually going to be able to impact more of the people in the Heights that are going to use these streets. So that's why we feel it's a good project to be utilized out of this for this fund.
Thanks, Mr. Reed.
Any idea what the savings percent is by utilizing the?
So utilizing the material, so if you look at the cost of asphalt right now, the cost of asphalt right now when you buy quantities that are good-sized quantities in which like what our Measure V projects are, what like we're seeing about $151 a ton put in place. By utilizing our recycled asphalt product for that one lift, we'll still have to put a cap of new asphalt over the top because it's not quite as consistent as a new asphalt would be. But in utilizing that, I think you'll see rates on asphalt, and don't quote me on this, but I can get you hard numbers. But I actually think that it's somewhere in the $68 to $83 a ton. So somewhere in the range of 40 to 50% cheaper. So that's, like I said, with the available funds in the project for the project, if we did a full construction of the street, we wouldn't have enough funds to do it because it is a half-mile length.
And that section you had quoted earlier on 178 from China Lake Boulevard east, right?
Ridgecrest Boulevard east.
Or Ridgecrest Boulevard, I mean, to east to toward Trona. That gets a lot of heavy truck traffic too.
Yes, sir, it does.
And that road does appear to me to still be in pretty fair shape.
It's in great shape.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised. Quinn went out, got some pictures. I said, I want you to find the worst spot on these roads and take pictures of it for me. And what he was showing me as the worst spots, and he tagged them on Google Earth so I could go look at them, I'm going, I can't even figure out where this is on Google Earth looking at the road from your pictures. So it's held up really well, I would say. So I think it's definitely a viable, we know it's going to stand up to our weather, our temperature, things like that. So I think it's a viable solution for us, provided we can find the right streets to get consistent material off of, so we get a good mix like Caltrans got for their base course.
So would that solve some of the issues where we see in some of the intersections where the heat and the pressures from the, I'm going to say heavy vehicles have molded, moved the asphalt and created.
And you're talking about heaves like we had it up,
Heaves,
John, and
yes.
stuff like that? No, so the heaves are based on what the whole structure, how the whole structural integrity of the road handles the weight. So, and your heave is really caused by braking when the asphalt's warm and the asphalt pushes. So this is still going to behave like asphalt. We're just not paying for new materials to build the asphalt. So if it's going to heave, that means we didn't do our job in creating a structural section that was adequate for it to do it.
Deeper.
Yes, correct. You got to be able to support the load when things are breaking so it doesn't cause heaves like that.
Okay.
Which we're not planning on having something that does that.
Mayor Bruin,
Yes, sir.
any comments?
No, sir, I'm fine. I'm just looking forward to seeing the use of materials in a recycled way. It's awesome to see.
Very good. Okay, we'll bring it back to the public for public comment. Any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we will move to the phone lines. Do we have any public comment on the phones? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for any further discussion or motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Ms. Breeden?
Aye.
Mayor Bruin?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
I hear the phones ring again.
Nope, yep.
Hello.
Caller, go ahead.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call. This is Mike Sunot. Am I on right now?
You are, Mike, but you may need to mute either your.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
I want to bring this up again because I brought it up during the budget meeting. And this isn't Travis's fault, but I've been trying to get the city, i.e. Mayor Breeden and Mr. Strand, to deal with Mahan Street. I've watched that street for, I guess, 20 years. It's so ridiculous to be talking about annexation and growth when you can't finish your streets. And secondly, the pace that you're on right now, as far as taking care of the streets that are in terrible shape, is too slow. And from what I understand, you now have no Measure V money left. And I guess my question is, and this, I'm sorry, Travis, but how long do you think it will take the city and Kern County to get together and finish Mahan Street?
So, Mr. Sanat, I love to have your comment, but I don't see where that coincides with the item on Franklin Street, because the item 4 was on dealt with Franklin Street. So
I'll wait for it to be on another day then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on, next item is item number 5, discussion regarding the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority, and that will be with myself. So the board did meet, and I will go over some of the highlights of that meeting. So starting with we approved the consent agenda. Moving on to item, thank you, Travis. Thank you. We appreciate it. Moving on to item number 9, board received and filed the 2020 financial audit report from Brown Armstrong. It was approved. There were some minor administrative correction actions recommended by Brown Armstrong, and those were acknowledged, and the corrective actions were taken by the authority. Item number 10 was communication and engagement plan improvements and implementation. And so we discussed the community engagement plan that has been an ongoing project. The GA recognizes the need for improved outreach and communication efforts, and along with DWR in approval of the GSP, one of the recommended corrective action number 1, dealt with the communication and engagement plan. So it's nice to see us following through with not only something that really needs to be dealt with and will be a real benefit to the public to be able to get information from the GA to the public and to the stakeholders, but it also is an active process in correcting one of the corrective actions that DWR had recommended. So that was approved, and there was a $60,000 budget amount that was approved for that. And some of the PAC has been really diligent, working hard on the community engagement plan. Some of the items that they had brought forth on it was development of the informational mailers, development of fact sheets, improvement of the website and information, regular electronic newsletter, e-blasts, active social media presence, and public workshops. So those are some of the items. They're going to go back and fine tune this. There was some discussion as to using social media. I think the consensus was it's a real viable and effective means of getting messages out, but there's concern as to the negativity that is associated with social media too, that we don't want to get too deep into that. So they're working out some of the bugs on that and how to utilize it in a professional, productive manner. And so I'm really pleased to see this happening. You could call it public relations or educational, project that we're working on to, like I said before, get information out to the public and to educate people on what it is that the GA is doing. So that was a real positive end result of the meeting. So Following that was the Water Resources Manager's report, which was pretty quick. There was a couple highlights that Steve Johnson covered. I'll go over those. Let's see here. So mainly on the recycled water program. So it's released to the technical team on June 6th. We're awaiting comments from the technical team, primarily in regards to the deep well injection project. Update on the preliminary design of the recycled water project. We're awaiting that. So ongoing work is being done on the recycled water planning, and I believe that's about it. So it was a rather quick meeting, so that's all I have from our last meeting. If anyone on council has any questions or discussion they'd like to add to it.
I have a question. There was some discussion, and I think I heard a member of the public, I was listening to it, make a comment about how the Kern County Water Agency used to publish depth to water changes over time. And the comment was made, and I agree 100%, that we tend to judge what's happening by the facts. And if you don't have the facts, all you then can go by what's the last thing you heard, whether you believe it or not. And for years, they published dropping depths to water virtually over most of the valley. And so in the past, people tended to believe that they were facts, and this is how much has dropped in these particular areas. Now we have other people saying that we don't have so much of a problem, and I would like to see us concentrate on getting those well measurements back out again and using them to show where we are in the valley as far as depth to water. And I don't know the best way to do that. I do know that Kern County Water Agency had those, and even if all we do is put them out, not necessarily only on the GSA site, but so people understand that this well used to be, I'm going to be ridiculous here, 20 feet to water, and now it's 60. It is changes. And if they're coming up, then I want to see those too. I don't think we're going to see many places where water is increasing over wide in the valley, except for some specific areas for very specific geologic reasons in those areas. And I'd like to see that so people can make value judgments instead of, well, my neighbor said, or this one said, or I believe this person. Here's the facts. Look at the facts, and you can make your judgment on these facts.
I think that's a very good point, Peggy. The well data is data that's been measured for decades, actually, and so I think that'd be some of the things like under the development of fact sheets. You know,
Yes.
There's information that, you know, I'll forward this to Dave, Janice, and the PAC as, you know, an example of, you know, what could be doing. That brought up another point of like water quality. So, you know, like out toward the cemetery in these areas where, you know, the water quality has diminished, you know, I think it's important to share.
Especially
that
to those
information.
small well owners in
Right.
that area.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I'll pass that on. Any other comments?
Would, so as to the public outreach policies and practices, would it be best for us to reach out to the PAC directly, or would you like it to go through you?
I don't see any reason not to reach out to the PAC directly.
I just, whatever the proper avenue is, I was just, you know, I didn't catch all of the last GA meeting, but I knew that they were deciding on, I knew that you guys were discussing it, and I heard that there was some sort of allocation to funds, and I just have a lot of ideas on, I spent a lot of my time, like usually the first thing when people ask me about the city, like, hey man, what's going on? How you been? Great. Can I talk about city stuff? Sure. Can we talk about water? The very first, can we, yeah, always. Absolutely. Let's talk about water because it's so important. And even last night, I spent a great amount of time sitting at dinner with a couple of folks. They're friends. They wanted to know about water. I spent an hour an hour talking about water, how we had got where we are, the various relationships, how there was this and that and the other, but to keep things objective, right? I would love to give some ideas, historical. I mean, and what I mean is, I would love for the community to fully understand. Peggy touched on a lot of opinions fly about. The public should fully understand how Sigma came about. There was history even before that, but let's talk about now. The role of the Groundwater Authority. If you're upset about portions of your paycheck going to the Groundwater Authority, as we all should, when money comes out of your paycheck, you should know where it's going, what it's for. That's good information to see, right? I mean, we all want to know where our dollars are going, especially in today's economy. What's the importance of imported water? Why does it need to be here? Well, I mean, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, but I think those would all be great things to line out in the informational sheets. And so I had some ideas for the pack, and I just didn't know if you would much rather me, instead of me trying to funnel it through you or through the city manager, if you want me to go directly to the pack and give my comments in a public way, or I can send an email. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, from my own personal perspective, to go directly to the pack, but also share it with the council, in the next, discussion we have, that, you've brought that information up.
Sure.
To them.
Well, I could share my ideas now. I just don't know how much everybody wants to hear me talk.
One of the things I'd brought up too in regards to the communication engagements or public relations was from being, a little biased as to, I like to see the city and our, the citizens of Ridgecrest, which composes a very large number of individuals, and I'd like to see them, the focus, a good focus going out to educating the citizens of Ridgecrest on these very issues. So.
Yeah.
And how to go about that, if you have any ideas, or anyone has any ideas, as far as direction to go, and which of these avenues that, PAC has presented to us that, are some of the options we have to get out there and touch base with people that we utilize. I call it the biggest bang for the buck. I mean, we have a limited budget, set aside for it, and how are we going to get that message out to the, the majority of people that we can get it to, and continue to focus on those more difficult areas and individuals to reach. That it's been a bit of a challenge for the GA in reaching, the county and individuals that are.
Well, there's a basic history and science to where we're at right now. We can talk about the model, right? The model that predicts why that we even think that we need imported water. There's basic science as to. Like you mentioned earlier, all the wells that have been tracked for so long. This isn't something new. There's a basic science as to why we don't want to mine the basin. Keep mining the basin, and when I use that term, for those of you who are just not always in the know, I mean it means keep sinking wells deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, there's some basic facts there that I think the public should be very aware of, and I'm sure that some of these guys like. Mr. Decker are beating his head against the wall. Every time he listens to any public meeting, I'm sure he's like, "Come on, guys, there's some scientific facts here. Let's get those talked about." And I think sometimes we get lost in the minutia, and we don't just stick to some of our objective facts. And I think those would tell the story. And I trust the public to make those decisions. But I think sometimes we lose that message. That's my personal thought. So I think this is overall, I think it's a great idea. I'm glad you guys are moving in that direction. I just wanted to make sure that
and the importance as to what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it, and the long-term importance of it. And
I'm genuinely convinced, Scott, that if the public understood thoroughly where money was going and what it was doing, they would be okay.
And what the ramifications are going to be if we don't do it.
Sure. And I think those are just all important things to be conveyed to the public.
Right.
But I have plenty to say, but it looks like we have a comment or so.
Any other comments from the council? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to public comment. So we'll start with the floor. Any public comment from the floor? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm John Gorman. I'll answer to Skip. Live in the city of Ridgecrest. And I wasn't going to speak on this particular issue. The next one I'm prepared to speak to, but You got me up. One thing that I understand the Groundwater Authority is spending money on is to buy a facilitator. I think I was here when she and somebody else from the county was here, sort of a happy face camp counselor to bring everybody together and get them to communicate. Am I right about that?
I don't believe you're right on that the Groundwater Authority has spent money to bring in a facilitator.
I wonder, Skip, if the only facilitator I've heard of is from the DWR.
That was DWR that promoted that, and the Water District who took the baton.
Hot dog. It's in the water community, so I was generally right. At my age, I'm happy with that.
It's a fluid situation.
One thing I would love as an independent well owner within the city is if the decision makers were to facilitate communication with that demographic, that group of people who climbed under their rocks since the Grand Inyo Kern massacre at the senior center years and years ago. It might bring them out if a service was offered. What brought this to mind was I would love to be able to carry a quart or so of my well water into the water district and hand it to Mr. Zadiba and say, look, when you get your water checked by whoever does it, in Bakersfield or God knows where, take this too, get this checked. Because I'd like to know the constituents of my water. And I think when I asked him that the first time, he gave me a breathtaking price. These things aren't free, you rascal. And I walked away shaking my head. I can't pay that. So if facilitation was available to make a service like that free, you know, you would shake those rascals out of the trees in the county and around Inyo Kern who would say, okay, this is great. I can get my water checked. Let's go a step further. I could get my well checked. We don't know how deep the water is most of the time, nor the drawdown, which is an indication of the health of the well. That would be so super if friendly facilitation paid for by somebody other than us could be available to bring us out from under our rocks, so to speak. You don't need to either agree or disagree. The words are out there. Peggy looks like she's about to say something.
I am. About 20 years ago, and I'm going back, the Kern County Water Agency, in association, and I believe the RCD was involved in it, asked people if they wanted to bring their well water to them, understanding that unless you took it the way the directions under which they told you to pull the water from your well, that they would give it to, and the cost was, I believe at the time, because I had my well done, was $175. I'm sure the cost is 10 times that now, but nonetheless, those services may still be available from the agency. And I know Terry Rogers helped facilitate that at the time, and Terry is not on the Kern County Water Agency anymore.
That sounds hopeful, Peggy.
Yeah.
Maybe this will go somewhere. Okay, that was my comment, my friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Any other public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move to the phone lines. Any public comment on the phones?
Yes.
Caller,
my
go
name
ahead.
is Mike. Thank you. My name is Mike Sanat. I'm the publisher of Roadrunner395.com. I'm also the lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit versus the Groundwater Authority et al. That's an intention after the adjudication is finalized. I'm a resident and a homeowner in Kern County District 20, and I'm a customer of the Indian Wells Valley Water District. Last but not least, I'm a taxpayer. I pay taxes for your schools, and I pay sales taxes, and you don't listen to anybody in this town. My quotes that I'm going to read from you come from last June's city council meeting, and I'll read them real quick. These were from various people that are involved, civic-minded people in this community that have been here for many years. This is a travesty. It's disgusting, and by far the worst thing I've seen in the valley in 40 years, period. Well, I've been on this valley floor for 66 years, and it is disgusting. Another quote, our country is being pushed to the brink of despair. Mr. Heyman and the Groundwater Authority care nothing for the individual lives and the effect of those decisions on people's lives. Why would anyone who says they care about their constituents or their neighbors even slightly entertain a vote that would decimate this valley, as this decision will do if you uphold it, which you are doing? And by the way, the DWR has been trying to get the city and the Groundwater Authority to the table of facilitation for over a year. The burden of solutions must be borne equally by all who live in the valley, not a few lives that seem expendable to those in power. Another quote, you're costing the residents of this community millions of dollars, Mr. Heyman. You should be ashamed of your vote. The lack of caring from this city council is atrocious. That's from a young woman by the name of Regina. She's a stakeholder and member of the community in Trona, part of our community. Margianis said, it is appalling to me, a citizen of the United States, to witness such atrocities implemented here against its own people, its own citizens. How much time do I have left, please?
1:55.
Okay. At the same time last year, prior to the meeting that you held on June, I think it was June 12th or 16th, the Groundwater Authority held their meeting on June 9th. You and the council, Chairman Heyman, made no public comment. You did not report on the meeting. The meeting was 5 hours long. And at that meeting, Jeff Simonetti with Capital Corps, also known as staff at the Groundwater Authority, said that there's two options for water supply, Central Valley Project and the State Water Project. The water supply is highly variable. That means unreliable. The State Water Project is only providing 5% of the 4.4 million acre feet they should deliver. 30 years of water supply is the goal. The regulatory issues are immense. Agriculture has more tree nuts and citrus and more annual supply required. On June 6, 2021, a year ago, he said most surface supplies are depleted and current supplies are dwindling. Extreme to exceptional drought conditions exist. This is Jeff Simonetti from Capital Corps telling you that you only have two alternatives to get water. That's incorrect. You have another alternative, but you don't want to listen. And I will continue to make this point every meeting from here till the time this facilitation process is completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanat. Any other public comment on the phones? Okay, seeing none, we will continue to move on. So next we, let's see. Okay, moving on to public hearing. Item number 6, a resolution and public hearing of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest, California, declaring its intent to levy and collect assessments within the Consolidated Landscaping and Lighting District, number 2012-1, review of the preliminary engineer's report, and authorization to finalize said report for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. This will be presented by Travis Reed. At this time, we will open the public hearing. And so that's considered done, and we will next move with the staff report from Travis.
Good evening, council. So this is to perpetuate the district, which has been in place since 2012. As you guys are aware, we have 5 zones. 5 zones. We've got 1A, 1B, 1C. Those are the tracks up the hill. 2 and 3 are Walmart and the area surrounding Walmart, and 4 and 5 are the newest of them, and they encompass the new tracks in which IWV Construction built. A few things of note: the current holder of the landscape contract, who has never requested a increase for his prices, has a 5-year contract, and we're in year 3, will be finished. This will be year 4. Has requested a 10% increase that has been factored into the budgets that were in the engineer's report that was included in last month's last agenda package. And the only other item of note is that District 3, which is the area surrounding Walmart, will be the first district in which we will have a city general fund contribution. It's about $5,500 that will be contributed out of general funds. It will be the only account that has a negative reserve value. And technically, though, if you really look at the report and you see what we have built in for staff time and for the management of these, for doing all the invoicing, preparing the report, and things of that nature, the amount that's set aside there for staff time will cover the cost that is negative for that district. The most that you can increase a district by is 3.5%. All of the districts are within that boundary. The 3.5% can be attributed to water rates, the increase in landscaping maintenance costs, and things of that nature. And with that, I'm open for any questions that the council or the public would have.
Okay, we'll bring back to council, or actually, we're going to go ahead and move to public comment. So we'll start with public comment from the floor. Do we have any public comment? Go ahead, Skip.
Hello again, I'm Skip Gorman. First time I get to address Travis. You know, I miss Dave, old geezer, got up here often, talk about things. What was his last name? Who remembers?
Matthews.
Matthews, that's it, way down at the M's.
He's known around my house as Dave, not the band Matthews.
I've known him forever.
Yeah.
We typically and traditionally have an old Diaz approaching geezer. Dave was just the last of them. We had several before that. They seemed to come just at the right time. And maybe one will come again. I don't, with regard to this particular item, I'd like to know, how much money are we talking about here? This is a tax. It's going to end up on the back of our property tax form, right? And it'll be something we'll have to dig deep and pay each year, probably for a whole bunch of years.
Skip, this has nothing to do with your property. This has something to do with the current districts that are in place. This isn't a new district. Every year we have to come back and update the districts. And so this is what we're doing. We're not increasing the span of the district, which will not include your property. This is only the people who've already been in this district, who voluntarily entered this district when the property was developed.
Okay, I think. Notice he speaks up for me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, Skip, it has nothing to do with you.
Oh,
This is not a new assessment on your property.
Okay.
This is every year by law, we have to come back
I'm so
an update.
pleased. I figured it would be something like that. In fact,
I
under
didn't
those
mean to cut you off. I just
circumstances,
didn't want you to get too far into it.
why wasn't it a consent calendar item
Because
then?
by law, we have to do a public hearing.
Because it's
It's the law.
a bit of a tax.
Per the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972, it requires us to do it every year to perpetuate the district.
See, he doesn't even talk into his microphone to me.
My bad.
Right, Skip, this
Okay.
was done some years ago under a 218 hearing. It was done at the time these properties were brought into existence, like Kmart and some of the properties on College Heights Boulevard where the city helps maintain their landscaping. So these have already been established. This is nothing new.
And those words also apply to the next agenda item?
Yes, sir, it does.
I sincerely appreciate that. To the caller, Mr. Sanat. The signpost, which I designed, and me and Dave Ponick put up out in front of Denny's, the corner of Ridgecrest and China Lake Boulevard. It has on it a desert tortoise climbing halfway up to have a meeting with the father of all ravens on a motorcycle spring at the very top that makes him sort of kinetic in the wind. And the meeting is that she's the mother of all desert tortoises, and there's an ecological burden to our area because the ravens have learned to eat the baby tortoises before their shells harden. Nobody's come up with a real good solution to that, and I wanted to place the problem before the public. I've heard some decent solutions, and I hope BLM is listening and tries them out. They're very creative. Okay, so there. My friends, thank you for the good news. Won't cost me anything.
Could I say another
Thank
thing,
you.
Skip? If you're looking for an old geezer, you and I can work on that. I think I got you beat by a few years, but we can work on being old geezers. I'm
Maybe-
looking forward to that in November.
We'll tag team it, Peggy.
Let's do
I'd
that,
be
please.
pleased. Also, with regard to the hot sidewalk signs, I'll talk to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Also, Skip, if you want, the engineer's report is available with Rick Charlin, the city clerk. And it shows all of the parcels that are going to be levied that were created with the assessment.
I thought I had that, and I waded through it, getting a glimmer here and there of what it means. But I'll do it again. Thank you. It's in that package associated with the agenda, available online.
Correct.
Okay.
If you need it again, let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Skip.
2 copies is always better than 1, right?
Okay, any other public comment from the floor? Hearing none, we'll move to the phone lines. Any public comment from the phones? Okay, we have none. So at this time, we'll close the public hearing, and we will bring it back to the board for any discussion and a motion.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Ms. Breeden?
Aye.
Mayor Bruin?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 7, a resolution and public hearing of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest, California, declaring its intent to levy and collect assessments within the City of Ridgecrest Drainage Benefit Assessment District number 2016-1 pursuant to the provisions of the Benefit Assessment Act of 1982, review of the preliminary engineer's report, and authorization to finalize said report for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. Travis Reed.
Thank you. This again is another district that's set up. This is for the 3 tracks that
Actually,
are
can
up
I
the
s-
hill.
Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Absolutely.
So at this time, I need to open a public hearing, which we will now officially claim as done, and now we will allow you to proceed.
Thank you. So this is to perpetuate another district. This one is for drainage. As we know, the hill can have some drainage issues that feed down into the valley. I'd like to state that we are actually lowering the levy this year. We have approximately $20,000 in reserves, of which last year we used 0 of because we didn't have any major rainstorms or anything that negatively impacted roadways, things like that from these tracks. So we have lowered it, I forget what the total amount was, but we lowered it a decent chunk of change to where we're collecting roughly about $5,000 just in case we have an emergency. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will open it to public comment. So any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move to the phone lines. Any public comment on the phones? Okay, we have none. So we'll bring back to the council for any, or actually, we will close the public hearing at this time, and then we will bring it back to the council for any discussion and a motion.
Sure. I just wanted to state real quick for the public that we're not just shining this on. It's not that it's something that, it's just, this is a matter of routine. It's not, we're ignoring our, I do get that from the, sometimes I've had people who I know tell me, hey man, when you guys don't say something about an item, it makes us nervous. And so I just want to say for the public, this is a matter of routine. We open these hearings, we close them. If there's any discussion, please, let's have it. But as far as I'm concerned, I've sat through a few of these. I understand how they work, and I believe that we're just conducting city business. But if anybody has any questions on that, let's please have that. Other than that, hearing none, I don't think we've heard any, so I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Ms. Braden?
Aye.
Mayor Bruin?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Travis. Okay, next we're going to move to committee reports. And first we have City Org and Services Committee. Mayor Eric Bruin and Peggy Breeden.
Eric, did you want to do it, or you want me to?
Well, I'm still very much driving and indisposed, so I'm going to actually ask the City Manager Strand kind of give a recap from that meeting, because there was a bunch of talk to the City Org about annexation, but a lot of it wasn't really of agendized substance. So I'm going to ask if City Manager Strand would make that report.
I'm sorry. I guess I'm looking. I didn't hear it well.
He basically
but
was
I'm gonna
invited the city manager to give the report.
All right, good. Then we'll try to travel on here. We had our meeting. There wasn't a lot of discussion except for when it came to an item that was on the agenda as a future agenda item, and a number of people were there to talk, and as we explained to them, future agenda items are not an item we're talking about at that point in time. We're just letting you know that we are discussing it in committee or in other areas. And so after hearing all that, most of the people saw that the idea of this item was not going to be discussed, although we did hear everybody say what they wanted to say. There was discussion on, let me see if I got this straight, Ron, on the trash, and can you fill in that, please?
Yes, I can. We are hopefully looking to bring the waste management restatement agreement to council on July 6th. We were hoping to do it this evening, but there were some last-minute lawyer changes on behalf of waste management that we're still working our way through. Nothing really of substance, just making sure we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's. So we're hoping that by this Friday, we will have a final and complete document, and then we can send it out to council for your review.
Yeah, I didn't have the date, so thank you.
Yeah.
That was it. That was basically our meeting.
Yeah, the only other item we had on there was the wayfinder signs.
Yes.
And I know that Isabel's been working with a vendor that has provided a couple of renditions of what a proposed sign may be, and we plan on bringing that to the committee next month.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Next, we have Parks, Recreation, and Quality of Life Committee. That is Mayor Eric Bruin and myself. Mayor Bruin, would you like to start out with this?
Again, I'm going to defer based on my driving for Mr. Heyman, but the key elements here again that we're talking about our grant implementations and how we're getting those things lined up. And I will let Scott fill in from there. Thank you.
Okay. So basically, we did talk about the grants. We talked about some of the various parks and the upgrades to the parks. We talked about, one of the big highlights was the going to artificial turf for the soccer fields and the ball fields, and which areas to focus on. It looks like Leroy Jackson Park and those fields are kind of the major area that we're going to be looking at putting in the artificial turf. What else did we review? There was some overview of the was it teen grad night that they had, and so there was 60 teens showed up for it. It was a major success. There was no, how can you put it? It went smoothly. It went very smoothly.
The kids had a very good time.
That was the outcome, and so interaction with the kids, they were very very happy, and it seemed to have something like that in the town for them to go to.
Mr. Heyman, I'm sorry. Let me just fill in a little bit more on the fields aspect that
go ahead.
Wasn't said, which is what we were talking about is the Defense Communities Infrastructure Program, which is a program which is operated for the last several years, and the city of Ridgecrest is now working to find a solution that maybe scores very high on the DCIP, and we discovered that fields were something that scored very high, and we had a fairly spirited discussion. I'm just sharing this so the public's aware that we looked at the Kerr-McGee fields as well as the softball and soccer fields. And our point of all of that was to see what is the best artificial area potentially to look at. And we were very excited by what Marissa brought forward as the softball fields at Leroy Jackson Park, which would correspond with all the grant items. So I just want to give that explanation. It's a Defense Communities Infrastructure Program, and it's yet another very opportunistic grant program to continue the build out or rebuilding of Leroy Jackson Sports Complex. So just a little more detail, and thanks.
Thank you. And so that's all I have in regards to that meeting. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I'm satisfied. Again, congratulations to Nurse and her team on the team night. I was one of those people with the reservations on it, and I was thrilled to see how well it went. And congratulations to all of our Parks and Rec staff on another great soccer season for the kids of this community. And we're looking forward to the numerous summer programs they're rolling out. So kudos to all of them. I guess the last thing would be is if you didn't see it on social media, we talked about it at Quality Life, but the splash pad is up and functional, and certainly seeing its usage. So I want to again state on the record, the splash pad clearly is a value to this community.
It sure is. You know, I'd like to add too on the teen night. So because it was such a success, there, Narissa's looking at doing it again, but maybe not on a real regular basis, but on a periodic basis through the maybe through the summer or periodically through the year. But a couple of things we were looking at to bring in for the teens to do. One idea was a climbing wall, and so we had discussed kind of what that might entail if there's companies that could we could get businesses and individuals to sponsor it, and maybe bring in one of the climbing walls to on a special night. So they're working on that. I think it's a great idea, not just the climbing wall, but just the whole teen night and giving the kids, a fun place to come and relate with each other. And so it was really quite a positive end result. So anyway, that's all I have for that. We'll move on to the Economic Development Committee. That's with Kyle Blades and Solomon.
Sure. We talked about a few things. Mostly we went over our trip, staff and council. So myself, we also had Mr. Ferris went with us. We talked about our trip to ICSC. It's in Vegas. It's an enormous event. It's huge. You end up interacting with an amazing amount of vendors and companies, and a lot of good came from those meetings. And those meetings take years. And I know that sounds sounds facetious, but it's not. It's those, to get to the point of talking to some of these companies to get them to come to Ridgecrest or even consider coming to Ridgecrest takes years and years of meeting them, seeing you're serious, understanding the data, looking at the history. It was good that there was council there. You didn't always see a lot of electeds in that venue, but we could give them a warm and fuzzy that, yes, we're here to support our staff. Yes, this is the direction we'd like to see our city go in. And so it was very fruitful. My appreciation to the staff, because Ron and Megan especially did an immense amount of work getting things set up with our consultant so that we could talk to all these companies. Not all of them wanted something to do right with us. Ridgecrest wasn't going to be the one, but there were a lot of others that showed a whole lot of promise, and I could talk in depth about that with anybody who wants to know, or we talked about it at length at the last economic development meeting. Let's see. We also discussed, well, I brought up my own personal desire, right? I didn't hear anybody else chime in, but I brought up my own personal desire for the city to take on to be an economic driver in some certain areas. And what I mean by that is cultural events or other smaller community events. I see some of our, it's happened over time. I mentioned that I've watched my grandfather, who belongs to the Elks Club, right? I watched that participation diminish in the community to all those various clubs. That's not saying anything bad about anybody. We're just seeing a shift in focus of where people spend their time. I think most people find themselves just busy with life, busy with jobs. Whatever that answer is, living in a community such as ours, where it is more of it's like a company town. It is a one horse town, so to speak. Yeah, we'd all love to see the economy diversify overnight. I would love to see it. I'd love to see it happen organically, right? I don't think we should always be trying to throw Hail Marys and find shooting stars that'll surplus the budget. We need to see things happen naturally. But I think that the city itself has to take an active role in promoting and assisting, planning and executing some events, right? So that was just my discussion. I hope to bring it up in the future. I'd love to hear people's discussion about that thought and that idea. And I'd like to see at some point, I'd like to see staff take be able to work at those events. So we can talk about that at length if anybody wants to. And that segued into, I thought it'd be a great idea to do more on Balsam Street. I'd love to see, there was discussion, I think it was Councilwoman Stevens liked the idea of it's like Main Street America or something to that effect. I'd love to see more development on Balsam Street. That didn't work out for whatever reason or the other. I'd like to see the farmers market down there. I'd love to see the road, Balsam Street shut down certain weekends of the month. But those are all just ideas. Those are drivers that are in my head that I discussed at the meeting. And Solomon, did I miss anything?
I'd like to add, by attending the conference, we are planting seeds and building relationships. So those vendors, they know where Ridgecrest is, what they want. There are some businesses that want to come into the town, but they are looking for franchisees. So that's what we talked about in the meeting. So if you know anybody who is willing to start a business, so there are opportunities. So I just want to add that. Thank you.
And these franchises already meet the demographics as far as population and
Yeah.
baselines.
It's funny that you bring that up, Scott. When Megan and I were up in Monterey, there was at least, straight up right now, there were 3 franchises that were like, hey man, we already know who you are. I can see before your name tag even gets up here. We know where Ridgecrest is. We know your numbers. We've seen your data. We know how many people pull off the highway. We know how many stops are on the Shell station at the end of town. We know of every demographic. We know your income. We know we have credit card data. We have GPS data. We'd love to be there. Bring us a franchisee. You'll have a Dairy Queen. You'll have a Firehouse Subs.
UPS store.
You'll have a UPS store. You'll have these things. We've seen a franchisee owner. We'll go build the building or we'll pop on to another one. So we just need people to do it.
Very good. Okay, next we have the city manager's report.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Skipped one thing, other.
And then I'll reverse this one, and then we have other committees, boards, or commissions.
Oh, yeah, real quick, Scott, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I forgot to report out on my other committees, which is I have KernCog tomorrow and the pollution board coming up.
Very good.
Just so everybody knows. And KernCog's kind of a big one. I say it quickly, like almost flippantly. I don't mean to be flippant. KernCog plays a huge, vital role in what happens here in Ridgecrest, mostly money to streets and that sort of thing. So in the past, we've had council members. It's much more streamlined now, but in the past, your Ridgecrest City Council members had to go and fight real hard to get money for certain streets. So that, in that respect to be given to them. Now things are a lot more streamlined and fluid and in a motion, in a rhythm. And luckily, we have a very good public works director. I'm not just saying that because you're sitting here, Travis. He is all over it. He's in part of another separate staff committee that meets regularly. He is on top of all where grants need to be and how the city's going to continue to get funds because it's a large amount of the money we receive. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, other committees, boards, or commissions? Anyone have any other?
Sorry, that's all I got.
That's it? Yep. Okay. And you have no further city manager report?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay. All right, future agenda items. Anyone wish to bring up any future agenda items? Okay. And mayor and council comments? Peggy, would you like to start?
I don't have
None?
any.
I have none. Solomon?
No.
Oh, you guys are just going to leave it up to me, huh?
You're up, Kyle?
Okay, all right.
No.
Eric is out?
Eric doesn't have anything, so it's just all on me? Okay.
It's all on you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. So you've probably seen, if you've taken...
Oh man, I missed it.
No, you always have the opportunity.
I mean, I don't want you to start talking before I get the second opportunity to declare you the most beautiful person in Ridgecrest.
Oh.
So, just wanted to compliment you once again, Councilman, on your award and on being a representative for what we're trying to do with trash and beautification of this community. And thank you very much, Kyle, for that. I just wanted to get the humor line in there, and I'll let Kyle be the professional that closes us out.
No, please don't. No. please don't. No, none of that. It was something I meant to say in the announcements, but I wanted to get it out here as part of my comments to the public, and that is, you probably noticed even a year ago, the city, mainly driven by the city staff, getting surveys out, just seeing what the people need, what they want. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm gonna apologize right now. If they're a little bit clunky, right, if you got the survey and you clicked on the link and you went and followed it and if it was a little bit long and maybe the format wasn't great and you didn't like it, sorry about that. But we, the council, we, the city staff, are doing everything we can to reach out to the public over and over and over again. We all know there are things looming in the future. But before we jump the gun, we want to know that we understand as much as we possibly can, that we have data, that we can stand at some point and say, look, here's the data, this is what we're looking at, this is why we believe what we believe. This isn't a sales tactic. We're not trying to twist anybody's arm. We have a direction we're going, and this is why. I've personally been one of the biggest proponents of let's reach out in everywhere we can, in every way and everywhere. And so to add to that, so you'll probably receive more surveys in the future. I'm going to continue to be an advocate for that. And then I would also, myself, I don't want to commit any of the rest of the council, but I will try to commit some of the staff in the future. But I would like to get out. We used to do things like coffee with a council member. I did a few of those during the pandemic at the height. We did them virtually. There was some success, and then that sort of died down because I think they get used to hearing one person talk. But I would like to get back out in the community. I would like to do something that seems almost like tour dates, where we have different locations. So if you can't make a Tuesday in the afternoon, maybe you can make a Thursday in the afternoon. I doubt people want to come out on the weekends, so I'm going to keep shooting for weekdays. There's a couple different businesses I'd like to be at. And I want to be there to not only talk about city issues, I want to be there to answer anybody's questions about if you want to be on the council, you feel like you want to run, because we know that running season's coming, and you just have questions about how the city works, what's the relationship? That's huge. Your relationship with the community and with your staff. You won't come up here and get much done if you don't have a good relationship with your staff and you don't understand how they function and how items get to be on this agenda and how all that works. So please, it doesn't have to just be me. You have a whole dais of folks up here who would love to answer those questions. But I'm going to get out there and I'm going to try to put those out on social media, and I'll say them again here next meeting. There's certain dates I'd like to get out and talk with folks. The next thing is, I don't need to say this because I think I've said it in the past, but Mr. Heyman, I appreciate your service, and it really has been a tour of duty for you to be on that groundwater authority. The amount of flack, heat, and arrows you've taken in the last couple of years has been immense. You've accepted it graciously. You've done it stoically, and I appreciate that. I just want to make sure I'm giving the message back to the public that I fully support Mr. Heyman. I support his decisions thus far, and if they seem like they've been hard decisions to make, they have been. If you're looking at that groundwater authority and you think that those are easy decisions, they're not. I would say they're not easy for anybody. It doesn't matter who they are, whether it's any of the various counties, whether it's the city of Ridgecrest, or whether it's the water board, right? None of those decisions come easy. And I think it's one more reason why we need the PAC to start doing public outreach. I heard a lot of misinformation tonight aimed at you, and it's not that I can't lay blame at anybody's feet. I think that is just the nature of how these things develop. And I just, not only do I support you, but I think it's a great segue into why we need this. I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say we would be in our best interest not to comment on the previous callers.
Okay.
I mean, in a general sense, because of the fact that he just openly stated that he is suing the
Oh, right. Well,
class action lawsuit.
Sure.
So, but in regards to everything you were saying, you were just kind of dancing around the edge of it, probably.
Oh, yeah,
I want
probably.
to catch you before.
Was the lawyer going to step in at some point and tell me to zip my lip?
We're about at that point.
Okay, thanks, Martin.
I do not mean to step into your.
No, that's good.
Don't worry, Martin.
I need to start keeping a tally sheet on how many times the lawyers shut me down in a meeting. Not a lot, but that means I need to get better. I just want to express that to the public. There is a lot that goes into these decisions, and I appreciate your service there. And anybody in the public, if you believe these decisions are wrong, I think you need to have a long conversation with Mr. Heyman, because you're not, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate those comments, and I will say that myself, I owe it to the city of Ridgecrest to stand and proceed to try to find a resolution to our water issue. I think we as a council owe it to the citizens of Ridgecrest to actively pursue this. And so it's our obligation. And it's something that's been kicked around for decades, and it's a very, very important one. It's going to continue to be a huge, important future item for many of the western states. So anyway, thank you.
Yep, of course. And I think that was close to the last item, the last thing I wanted to finish out with. I mean, since the mayor's not here to drag us on, I want to just add one more thing. And that is just that I appreciate everybody reaching back out. I didn't get to say that earlier. There was a lot of feedback on the surveys, and I look forward to seeing people out in the public and just getting feedback. I want to go to different places because I'd like to see different crowds, different demographics. And, at some point, I'm sure you'll see me walking around neighborhoods and knocking on doors, whatever it takes. That's all I have, Mr. Heyman.
Any other council comments?
I appreciate Sean Connolly's comment about we pursuing the increase in the salaries. Thank you for that comment. Want to thank Sherry for working hard on that. I appreciate your hard work. Thank you.
That's a big one, Solomon, and I agree wholeheartedly with you, and I'm sure the rest of the council does too. We take a lot of dodging the arrows on a lot of issues, but that is one that and we're not done. I mean, we said at the beginning, this is a start, and we'll continue to be actively working to maintain and build upon what we've started today. So, anyway.
It's a promise you and I made
Yeah.
years ago.
To these very people. So, and again, we're committed, we're obligated to do it, and I guess since we're on that topic, the two people that I think, there's a lot of staff that was involved in it, but Sherry and Ron were very, very instrumental in making it happen. And we just kind of helped to push it along. So I just want to say, I spent some time in Tennessee and Kentucky last week, and we drove around, went out on some back roads into some small towns. And so I'd like to reiterate on what Councilman Blades brought up about the small community functions. And so some of these little towns we went into, they have, if you've never driven around some of the southern states or the Midwest, these towns are old, and a lot of them have little squares in the center of town, and they have all the brick buildings. It's their old, like our Balsam Street, it would be their downtown. They fixed these areas up. A lot of these cities are hurting to try to keep their community and up and alive. But we fell into, just by driving around, several little, like events, I guess you could call them, little public city events, and it was a lot of fun. There was a tomato stand. We were driving down a little country road, and there was a tomato stand, so I thought, well, I would like to buy some tomatoes. So I turned around, did a U-turn, and went back. And here was this stand, and it's done up really nice. There's all these huge, the biggest, nicest tomatoes you've ever seen in your life, and a box sitting there, and it said the tomatoes are $1, put the money in the box. Nobody's around. And so we bought the tomatoes, put the money in the box, and a young girl drove up in a truck and asked if she could, if we needed any help or anything. I said, nope, she just cruised on by, and I thought, that is something that we may never get to that point where we could have, somebody open a business in town, but to be able to experience that kind of openness and honesty level in a, community was a lot of fun in my book. And, we may not get to that point, but we could sure keep doing what we're doing, having community events and working with our teens and these things all, I think they build off of each other. You do good and you build off good and you continue, it keeps growing. And so I concur with you. I think these events are nice if we can pull them off, or, have individuals that commandeer them, and people enjoy going to them. It's just like from a spectator's perspective, it was fun to participate. So anyway, that's all I have. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.